Welcome, everyone. We are going to talk about letting go and how do you master detachment in 6 steps. Super excited. So, listen, what we're going to talk about is how do you actually let go of the things in your life that no longer serve you, right? They're not serving your energy and your intuition. There is a voice inside, there is some part of you that is there telling you that you don't want to waste or use up another period of your life spinning in the negativity that this thing in your life that you might be tolerating or that you might be constantly trying to fix or change or strategize around. When your soul, your essential self knows that this is no longer right for you. And that's a really important piece because we have to realize that it may have been right for us. However, there are certain things that are no longer right for us. And this theme was really hitting me over the last couple of weeks because I live in Colorado right now, and it just was like, bam, September came and the season of fall began. And there are all these trees turning colors and dropping their leaves on the trail. And it made me think about this idea that is when we have this negative energy, when there is something that we are meant to do that is bigger or more expansive or a different direction than where we are now in our life, it's important to understand that this evolving, this evolution, that things must die so that new things can grow is a part of life that rarely gets talked about. Um, right. And so we have to really get honest about what do we need to let sort of wither away and fall, right? What do we need to let gently drop to the ground, right? In your life so that you can create change, so that you can reinvent, so that you can make room for things in your life to blossom, right? The spring and the summer of the next season of your life. And the reason why I feel so passionately about this is that in my own life, really reinventing myself so many times, right? At the tender age of 57. The thing is, look, if we look at nature and we look at the leaves turning, we look at the leaves dropping, and they gently fall to the ground, we will all say this is a beautiful thing, right? If you've witnessed it, you'll say, wow, this is so beautiful. It's the most natural thing that happens, and it's a delight and it's a wonder. What's going on, and I did some research, I did an Instagram about this, but basically, I was like, why does this happen in nature? And ultimately, the tree during winter can no longer sustain and n provide nutrition, and take care of those leaves during the harsh winter, right? And if the leaves don't fall off the tree would die, right? So the tree is sort of like, if you don't get off my branches, um, I won't be able to sustain, right? So it literally kicks them off, right? It kicks them out of their life. And then once those leaves are gone, the tree can kind of conserve its energy instead of giving it all to the leaf and, slowly killing itself. And so what I want you to think about is, where are the areas in your life where you've given all your energy, whether it's a relationship, a friendship, an intimate relationship, a part of your professional life, or a business, or a part of a business that you currently have, or even an attachment to a person or a place where you live or a time of your life, right? Like, if you're a new parent, you would long for that older part of your life when you were single, or maybe your kids are leaving and you're an empty nester, or it's retirement or aging or whatever it is, right? Um, But the bottom line is we get into these thinking patterns and we attach to the timeline that we have had in our mind of what our life was going to look like with this thing in it. It's like cemented into our brain, right? And we can tolerate this for years. And we put all our energy into that direction, trying to pretzel ourselves or do mental gymnastics or efforting to try and make that thing work because it was our original dream. It was original plan we had. It was what we felt energized by, or our identity was tied to that thing. And so what happens is that over time we don't get in return. There's not that reciprocity. And that's what fall is for, right? If you hold on to those leaves, you're going to die. Your soul is going to die, right? Um, and when you look at this powerful cycle in nature and you understand that fall has a purpose, it's for something. It's not just to build a fire and drink pumpkin spice lattes, as they say, right? Um, it's in order for us to really understand that in order to be born again, to keep growing, right? That things must die. We must let things go so that what needs to come can come. And what keeps us stuck, and this is what we're going to talk about, is this attachment to something specific. So I want you to make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to teach you these 6 steps. And I believe that 98% of the people that talk about attachment, I did a ton of research in preparation for this video, they're doing it all wrong. In fact, up until a couple years ago, and even specifically the last year, I think I was doing it wrong, meaning that I wasn't really digging deep into what actually releases attachment so that we can grow, so that we can actually let go. We can kick those leaves off so that we can conserve our energy and put it towards what is right and aligned with our soul. And the technique that I'm going to share with you um, is often talked about, right? This idea of detachment and letting go. Books have been written about it. One of my favorite books, called The Surrender Experiment, was a great book around surrender and what the author did to learn how to surrender and let go. But I think that in all of the research that I did, and even in my own life before I understood really what is required, and I started doing it with my clients, is that when we think it through, we think about detaching and letting go, it doesn't work, right? Because it is a neck up experience. And so the old way of understanding, like letting go, or I have an attachment style that is anxious and I need to let go of that and become securely attached. It's all happening through the neck up, right? So you might be reading books about it. I found YouTube videos as long as like 50 minutes or longer about like this process of like, how do you like detach? And what I'm going to teach you does not need to take hours and years of therapy to do. Some people want to go to yoga, right? Or they think if I meditate a lot about this thing, then I can let go of it. Or they'll go to talk therapy, or they'll just avoid it, right? Or tolerate it, or keep looking for process and try to out hustle the attachment, right? By throwing new strategy at it. Um, I know that I did this so many times, whether it was leaving Los Angeles and the house that I lived in for 23 years and trying to figure out ways to stay and avoid the truth that the time in LA was done for now. Um, or in my business, when I was, had this thriving dating coaching business, doing live events for hundreds of people and a big team, and $70,000 a month payroll and speaking on the stage and la di da, right? And um, just trying to avoid that feeling like something isn't right. Um, Replaying things in my mind, like shaming myself, like I should have figured this out, right? Why can't I make this thing work? So all of that like neck up approach just doesn't work. Um, it put stress on your nervous system. So it's literally creating adrenaline and cortisol rushing through your body. So your nervous system is getting fried. That causes our bellies to get a little mushy if you're a woman, especially. It can make you feel like menopause if you're in that part of your life is really hard, or your hormones. Um, you can not be present. You can snap at people. Right. You just feel like you're not sleeping very well. You're not digesting very well. We worry, we get anxious, and all of that results in trying harder to make what we are attached to work. And then we get overwhelmed, and we have this belief then that nothing works and that maybe this is the best, and I worked really hard to do this. And then you try and convince yourself that maybe you're crazy for wanting more, or that you shouldn't ask for more, or that maybe there is nothing better and you should be happy with what you have and focus on other things. But the bottom line is, when we're in this old way, we get really trapped in the identity of hopelessness, overwhelm, burnout, frazzled. I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know what's next. We feel lost. And the key to really understanding is that, and this is really important, is that you cannot think your way out of these thoughts. You cannot think your way out of letting go, because your primitive brain is wired like a smoke detector. I love this. This is an analogy from Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. And he talks about how our primitive brain, our amygdala, is like a smoke detector. And whenever there is the scent of smoke, aka fear, um, everything shuts down. We revert back into that old way, vicious cycle, and we stay stuck in our attachments, right? Because that fear is there to keep us in the illusion, and write that down, the illusion of safety. It's just that we're familiar and comfortable with our discomfort, right? Because we know what's going to happen. So even if you don't like where you are, if you feel frustrated, if you feel so stuck, it's familiar and that's comfortable. Um, so the problem that you have then is that if you could just let go by trying harder, or by learning more, or by meditating, you would have already. Um, And I understand that it's really hard. I've had those things in my life that I was very, very much attached to. And pouring negative energy into those things, instead of realizing that they needed to complete. Whether it was getting divorced after 17 years and having 3 little kids, when I had my ski accident in 2020 and my kids left the nest, and trying to figure out what my life might look like if I'm not an active, engaged mom of little kids. Um, all of this took me on this inward journey. And this is what I want you to start thinking about as we get into this first step. And so, the first step, of really learning how to let go, um, is this. Number one, whoops, let's go back. Number one, we have to stop trying harder, because the old way, as I said, is frying our nervous system, meaning that we have to understand that there is a problem underneath the circumstances that you think are your problem. So you're attached to a person, a business model, a place to live, a time in your life, uh, your ex, whatever it is, right? And we think that that's the problem. But the step one that I really want you to start thinking about is that you have to surface the actual real problem. The reason why you can't let go, the reason why you're attached, is a deeper problem, right? For me, when I had my most recent reinvention in writing my new chapter, uh, what I realized was that I didn't want to leave the life that I had, or even the business that I had later on in that journey, but was that I was actually terrified of change. I believed that the circumstances around me were the things that made me feel safe or in control, right? That if I let go of that familiar thing that I didn't want to let go of, then I would feel out of control. Like, who am I, right? I felt groundless. And for me, what I realized is I was just terrified of change. I had to surface that deeper problem. And for you, in whatever it is that you're attached to, you have to start thinking, because I'm attached to this, because, and really own the fear, the shame, the grief, the loss, right? We have to understand that there's a deep feeling that is underneath this attachment, and we have to sort of be willing to turn towards it and go there. Right? So this first step is really understanding that the problem that you think you have around your attachment is less the problem and more that there is something inward, a feeling about that you have been avoiding, that you actually need to turn toward and handle and deal with. And that's a really, really important first step. Okay, so let's look at what is step 2. We talked about surfacing the essential problem. By the way, I took this picture yesterday and today there was a frost and now this flower is dead. So I'm really glad I captured it. Okay. So step 3, let's do that. Step 3. So we've talked about you've surfaced the essential problem, and the next thing we have to do is we have to find the energy of that feeling inside of you. So I want you to understand, right? There is an energetic vibration of that feeling state that you've just turned toward. It's vibrating, it's impacting your cells, your nervous system, right? There's the physical energy that is inside of you at a vibrational frequency, so to speak, that lives inside your body somewhere. And so you might even now just sort of scan if you've realized, okay, I'm surfing the essential problem. You already kind of understand there's a feeling that's attached. And you might scan and be like, where do I feel drawn energetically as I move my hands around my body? Where does that energy live? It might be in your belly, it might be in your throat, it might be in your chest, it might be in your pelvis, in your shoulders, in your head, behind your eyes, in your jaw, right? Where is that energy? And you have to locate that energy. And when I teach this to clients and walk them through this process, we focus on the feeling and you get present to any of the suffering, the pain, the sadness, the unworthiness, the upset, the disappointment, the grief that is there. And then really being able to feel it. And here's the key piece: accept it. Right? When we are trying to push it out, push it away, get rid of it, shame it, yell at it, beat it into submission, we are perpetuating our attachment. We hold on tighter, right? And so we have to allow, if you feel that feeling, allow it to be there and surrender to it. Stop fighting it. Like, what you resist persists, right? We have to allow ourselves the gift of being brave enough to be with the feeling. And what you're probably doing instead is the exact opposite, right? You are probably like having a problem with that thing that you're attached to, get in an argument with your boss, they don't listen to you, or something's not going right in your business, that marketing strategy failed, you have the wrong clients, you have an experience in the town that you live in that makes you feel really frustrated. Your ex hits you back up, some moment, right, that happens. And rather than doing these steps that I'm telling you about, what you do is you suppress that emotion. Rather than turning toward it, you would suppress it. You scroll, you get into an argument with someone, you drink wine, you have a judgment about them. You fall into that rage, blame, drama, too tired, no energy to deal with it, forget about it, put it away cycle. You create drama or a narrative around it. You bury yourself in busyness or work. Um, or a tactic really smart women use in this is you problem solve. You try to think of more problems or more solutions that you can throw at it that will allow you to solve that problem. Um, and you just try and, again, out hustle the attachment with strategy. Um, so this piece is in this step is that you have to really turn toward and be with the feeling, and allow yourself to feel it and surrender to it. And this is a really important part of this process to write this down is you want to make sure that you create a specific time that you set aside to do this, right? As part of your stillness practice, as part of your routine, that you have to be with and manage your emotions in a powerful way. This isn't something that you're too busy to deal with, or you just go like, yeah, I need to set aside time to think about that. No, this is part of your practice, and you're going to create a specific time to do this in your routine regularly where you allow yourself to be and turn toward the feeling of whatever it is that you are really struggling to let go of. Okay, step 3, step 4, I think we're at. This is a really, really powerful step. It's, almost in some ways like an advanced move, um, but it's the secret sauce, and that is that you have to embrace that there is a polarity inside of you around this attachment. This is like huge, 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 right? The truth is, in this part of the process, this next piece, you recognize that and acknowledge the voices and the parts of you that are more dominant and those that are repressed, right? Part of me wanted to stay in LA and be a mom, right? And be like, go the nostalgia of that part of my life. Like, part of me really, really longed to be able to do that forever in my life. And the other part of me knew that it was time, right? That the next thing to nurture was myself, right? Part of me has one feeling about it, right? Like, part of me wants to fix and solve the problem, and another part of me knows there is really nothing to fix. Part of me wishes I was, already there in the next step, right? That I could just be through the transition. And part of me knows I've already come so far, right? We have to, for ourselves, come up with the unique polarities inside this attachment. It's an important step because it is acknowledging this, and these polarity statements that we make in our closed eye stillness practice, going through this process, creates self-compassion. Um, from this part, we can reconnect to the truth. And I want you to write this one down too, that all these parts are part of you. All these parts are part of you. And your soul knows this. There is no shame in these parts, right? And the simple truth is, in releasing our attachment, we have a choice as to which part we want to follow at any given moment. I had this huge example of this. It happened really recently, and it was like a little thing, but it's a big thing. And I still have this like attachment to a fear around my injury, my traumatic ski accident they had in 2020. And so when I do something new that's physical, I can really hold myself back. I can say no. I can get caught up in fear. I can not have fun in doing it. I can get in my head, but ultimately what I realized in my journey was that because of this fear, I was basically saying no and sidelining myself to a lot of things. I was letting fear choose. And so this summer, I decided to try this mountain biking experience. And I was so aware in that moment of the polarity. Part of me was afraid I was going to fall, and part of me knew that I was capable. Part of me was having like PTSD, and part of me knew that I was trying something new and it was going to be hard, and that was okay. Right. And I really literally decided which part of me am I going to bring forward. And I chose the part of me that was capable so that I could try it and really decide that if I liked it or I didn't like it, but that I made a choice rather than being attached to fear and letting fear decide what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. So this process is powerful. The last part of the process of the polarity, and this is really an amazing part, is that you want to bring levity to this realization of all these parts of us, right? Um, there's a game, right? There's a silly game that the parts play, and it can be really silly when we get caught up in it. When I'm coaching clients and I talk about that inner critic voice, we call it the gremlin. And I always say, your job isn't to kill the gremlin, to like get rid of the gremlin. You say like thanks for your thoughts and like I got this, right? Like there are parts, and to have that levity and understand that we get so caught up in it, and that really we are just making choices about which identity we want to lean into, and we have to acknowledge that both those parts are there at the same time. And when we do that, that grip on what we're attached to just starts to loosen. It's really, really powerful. Okay, so let's talk about the next step. So the next step is that we have to physically remove any stuck energy. We have to physically remove any stuck energy. Um, and this is not often a linear process, but often when we are in this detaching, letting go experience, right? And notice how all of it's happening internally, right? We're not we're not like trying to solve the problem. We're being with what is there. We're working with it. We're being brave. So often there's actually physically energy that's like, it's just stuck, right? There's a stuckness to not being able to move through this attachment, through this transition, through this fear. And so we have to just acknowledge that there's energy that's stuck in our body that we just need to release. Right? It's like the tree has to kick off those leaves. And so we want to again really look at where is it in my body? You might feel it in the same place, it might have moved. And we're going to use a process called toning, which is using the vibration of your voice, um, and a somatic experience, meaning we're using our body, right? Our voice to verbalize the stuckness. And it might look like this. So I lead my clients through this process. And there's a part where they find it and they do something like this. They use the word stuck, and they might just go, stuck, and you follow the exhale all the way to the end. And when you get to the end of the breath, usually there's going to be a cough or a laugh. For me, it's always a cough. And I'm coughing and I'm letting out, I'm actually releasing all the stuck energy in my body, right? And the vibration of our voice making that noise actually shakes and loosens all of the stuck energy, and it moves it out and it shifts your neural pathways. Tony Robbins calls it your state, right? It shifts your energetic state and it releases all that stuck energy and creates physical, literal freedom inside your body, right? So you're actually toning out your attachment. And I want you to know this might not be a one and done, right? It is like constantly, as we come up with these new fears, these new felt states, we go through this polarity process, we find that stuckness, and then we tone it and we're moving it out. And this creates massive shifts, not only in the way our brain is wired, but the way we physically feel and the way in which we're able to like take action. It's powerful. All right, then the next step after we do this, removing physically the energy, is this piece around making what's possible real. And this is really about identity work, right? And I've been talking a lot about identity. If you've been watching any of my videos, you might want to check out a video that I did that's on here on YouTube on the momentum tunnel. And the reason why I talk about momentum tunnel is this: is that when you're attached to something or a person or a place or a thing or a business or a job or a career path or whatever it is, your identity is steeped in that belief. And everything that you've done up until that time has created momentum to be where you are now. And I call that a momentum tunnel because, like, you're in a tunnel vision. You're like, this is what it has to be. That's why you're trying to out hustle it to make it work, right? You're in the tunnel. And what happens is when you do this process is you stall the momentum of that tunnel and you create the opportunity to really understand who you are right now, like blank slate, and decide, who am I and who do I really want to be? Who am I now? The old identity and the old my momentum was created from an idea in the past, right? That attachment, like that old version of me picked this thing or this person. Is this really right for me right now? And how can I actually then create new momentum without blowing up my life? Which is something that I teach clients when they do the life design process with me, right? Is how do you stall the old momentum and create a new identity and a new life vision and design the life for who you are now without blowing up the life you have? Well, that requires a process we call experimenting, which would be a topic for another video. The bottom line is the starting point of the new momentum and the new life is beginning to understand, who am I now? And that's really creating a new identity. In that new identity, we are free from our attachments. We are really truly making conscious choices. We allow the stuckness and all the fear and the grief and the shame, everything that we're holding, to go back into the earth, right? Like the leaves falling like compost. And that detachment, that release, that allowing, letting it go, fall to the ground, back to Mother Earth. It's like compost. And that forms the seeds for the new dream, right? In this last step, we're literally becoming more of who we are as we redesign. And we start to believe in the new timeline. And we start to take action that makes what is possible in the new identity and the new timeline real, right? Intentionally letting go is not just an intellectual process, right? To sum it up, it is an emotional process and it requires somatic experiential work, which I've described. It cannot be done just in your mind. I want you to let that sink in, right? Um, so forgive yourself. You just didn't know that there was a different way. And now you know there's a system and there's a process. How do I let go and surrender my attachments, figure out who I am, create a vision and a life by design, and start to tiptoe into that and create new momentum without blowing up the life I have? And that's life design, right? Because all of this, if we go back to the beginning, if you're the tree, it allows you to stop pouring energy into what isn't working, conserve that energy, and be the tree, right? Be the redwood, like that beautiful, powerful, strong tree, right? That lives for 2,000 years, right? Um, to create that new energy that is actually aligned with your soul, who you are right now, aligned with your values and what you really, really want in your life. That is really the power move. That's the power move. That's living courageously. And this process is living life rather than letting life live you. So, if this sounds like something you would want to do, right, is go through this process to intentionally let go and redesign your next chapter, rewrite the next version of your life wherever you are, however old you are, whatever stage or phase you are, no matter how hard you work to get there, you can do this. So, if you want some help, you can always email me. We're pretty simple here. You just email the word freedom to me at vip@datingwithdignity.com. I look forward to your comments and I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.